The Triplets of Belleville. It's hard for an independent animated feature to make a name for themselves and have a well-known legacy of their own outside of maybe being nominated for an Oscar. But The Triplets of Belleville is one of those rarities. It's a familiar name that came from outside of mainstream studios that just about every cartoon fan has heard about, and many consider it to be one of the shining examples of international animation. It's even got a bit of a history that left a strong impact in the medium after its release, where not only was this the first movie created by animator Sylvain Chomet and helped made him and his artistic style more recognizable in the animation industry, but this is also the first European film to receive an Oscar nomination for Best Animated Feature, along with its additional nomination for Best Song. And thanks to that milestone, along with Spirited Away's big win from the year prior, it has virtually become a tradition at the Academy Awards to nominate at least one independent or international movie in that category so that it could be discovered by a wider audience. But with all the hype that the film gathered over the years, it honestly made me increasingly curious to see for myself what the movie is all about. I've always wanted to check this picture, so I'm happy that I'll be able to finally get my chance with this review. And now that we'll be heading to Belleville and singing a different tune, will we find that the triplets still got it after all these years? Or is this movie getting too old like its leads? Let's find out. The story. In terms of the storytelling, The Triplets of Belleville is a case where it's as simple as it gets. The story is about an old lady and her dog who go to the big city in order to rescue her grandson from the mafia with the help of the triplets.
Swinging Belleville Rendez-vous, marathon dancing, doo-doo-doo.
This is a movie that knows what it wants to do, and it is devoted to its simplistic nature. There's no real-world topics that it wants to discuss, there are no character arcs to develop its personalities throughout their journey, there's no moral for the audience to learn from the experience, even the dialogue is kept at a minimum to the point of almost having this count as a silent picture. By mainstream standards, this sounds like there's little substance to be found. If there's none of the usual components that would normally comprise a completed film, then does it have anything to offer? Actually, yes. The simplicity that I've been talking about is the substance, and it's what separates this film from any of the mainstream features. It doesn't have those components so that it could focus on the minimum materials that it has to make them as effective as possible. This is especially the case with the animation. Since the dialogue is treated more like sound effects, it's up to the animation to take center stage to both tell the story and introduce the audience to its cast. And with the focus of being more visually driven, it opens more opportunities for the feature to be artistic in order to spice up the narrative. In a way, it's like an animated short that was extended to 80 minutes than a typical animated movie. It has a bit of an art house mentality where the animators are more in charge of telling the plot while being immersed in the world they created, but doesn't do it too much where the viewer gets lost. And that's the trick to why the Triplets of Belleville's storytelling works so well. It knows just the right amount of elements to include to keep the people engaged with it. The characters have enough charm to make them easy to connect with and not have them be either underdeveloped or overbearing. Souza's mission to save her grandson is enough of a reason to make a whole feature-length adventure out of it. There is enough social commentary to include a subtle statement about our reality without breaking the world building. And there is enough surrealism to make the movie feel enchanting without being too weird or have scenes that feel out of place. Sure, maybe there are some movies that can offer more than this one, but The Triplets of Belleville is aware of its own strengths and limits, and instead of trying a bunch of things with mixed results, the film only puts its energy on what it knows that it can do well, making the experience more unique and memorable with how it works in its own special way. But But there is one more thing to talk about that plays a big part with the narrative, and that's the comedy. As a movie that treats itself as a silent film, the jokes are generally visual-based to keep the feature lighthearted, and I'll admit that it does a great job to maintain the engagement. It's a movie that doesn't take itself very seriously and can often play around in the absurdity or have some slapstick. It kind of treats itself like a classic cartoon with the style of humor that it presents to make the adventure fun. It also has a great sense of timing and an element of surprise where it likes to take its time with the setup and then goes into the punchline with something unexpected. This is one of the best examples of simple storytelling. Instead of giving so much to its audience, it focuses on quality over quantity by sticking to the few strengths to drive the picture, leaving little to no room for flaws and provide just enough to make the experience enjoyable. The story is modest, but this kind of modesty is admirable. The animation. Like I said before, the Triplets of Belleville played a big role in turning Sylvain Chomet into an acclaimed figure across the industry, and later leaving his mark in other places to deliver even more memorable animated moments. And just by watching the feature alone is enough to understand how he achieved his fame. This wasn't made by just one team in a workshop. This was an elaborate collaboration between artists and animators from studios in France, Belgium, the UK, and Canada, all putting in their talents to form this one unified picture. And right at the beginning, they show off their artistic skills with an homage to the Golden Age cartoons of the 1930s when presenting the triplets during their prime, featuring cameos of celebrities from that era. It's funny how Cuphead made that classic style popular again for the modern age, but the triplets already did that several years prior, and it's still considered one of the best tributes of that era. But when the movie fast forwards to its main timeline, that's where Chomet's signature style flourishes. The best way to describe the look of the Triplets of Belleville is that it is reminiscent to city art, the kind that you'd commonly find that reflects upon the whole metropolis and its people. Specifically, that sketchy-looking art where the subjects are drawn more so than painted, and doesn't really hide the way that they were crafted so that they could show off the artistry that went into them. Also, it does not hold back to fill its own world with intricate detail. It's like it balances out the simple storytelling with complex visuals that can fill so much in one screen without looking cluttered. The backgrounds, for example, present a French perspective of the world, where the home of the main characters have elements of Paris, and the color palette plays a strong role in the mood of each scene to emphasize the emotion of the moment. And when the artist created Belleville, they combined New York City and Paris for the familiarity with French-Canadian areas like Quebec City and Montreal to add some extra personality. The place also likes to poke fun at American culture with the way that obesity is commonplace. As for the people themselves, they also add on to the style with the designs looking like caricatures. They don't hold back from exaggerating certain features to make their silhouettes stand out from the others. And sure, some can look weird, like teeth that are too big for their mouths or a nose that make them look like a borzoi. But this adds to the film's surreal nature so that the world building gives the sense of strangeness and familiarity. But then there's the character animation. That character animation, though! It is beautiful! You want gorgeous 2D animation? You will find that here. It's the kind that is so smooth and lifelike that it captures the illusion that these characters are in 3D. And there are some moments where it takes advantage of the characters' oddball designs to let their playful movements show off their personalities. But speaking of 3D, this movie actually has some of that as well. And that's the one thing that simplicity cannot fix. I'll give it that there are times when they can be well implemented with a hand-drawn animation like with the vehicles, but then there are times when the film tries to cut corners and make either the water or even the characters themselves be computer animated. That's when the movie reminds me that it came out in 2003 by showing a bit of its dated side. It's like when I'm watching this movie, it suddenly looks like it's being played on a GameCube. All it's missing is a direction to tell me which button I should hold to skip the cutscene.
Qui en attendant l'auréole de la victoire se contente de celle de la sueur qui laisse dans son sillage ce trait de musc que connaissent bien les...
But I will state that this is only a minor criticism, and it doesn't overshadow everything else that it did extremely well. It's also worth mentioning how the animation goes all out during the unexpectedly intense climax, where the personalities and the humor kicks it to high gear as the film reaches closer to the end. And while the action itself may feel slower than what you'd expect, the damage that these old ladies can do can be unapologetically brutal. I won't say that the visuals here are perfect, but when it gets it right, which is most of the time, it gets it amazingly, and it's some of the best hand-drawn animation so far from the 21st century. The characters. Don't let the film's minimalism fool you. Yes, these characters don't have any arcs or development during the picture, but they still provide strong personalities and make their roles significant to the feature. Again, they don't overcomplicate the picture with their own problems. They contribute just enough to make their presence known and deliver a memorable aspect to the viewer. This is especially the case with the leading grandma, Madame Souza. She carries the heart of the movie with how much she loves her grandson. During the beginning, the film does a great job to establish that all she wants is for him to be happy, and her devotion to his well-being is what motivates her to do anything she can to rescue him. Basically, she's a grandma who cares. Alongside Souza is her dog Bruno, who adds some extra comedy with his love for eating and barking at trains that pass by. And it's from his love of food that the grandma was able to take advantage of to help her get closer to the kid. Speaking of the boy, the grandson, Champion, started out as a lonely kid, but then found his spark when his grandma discovered his love for cycling, thus completely dedicating his life to becoming a cyclist. I'll admit that I find him to be the weakest character of the picture because he literally can only think about cycling to the point that his character became nothing more than a MacGuffin. Even when he gets kidnapped, you almost never see him emote or show any concerns about his own safety or his grandma. It's like he can only function if his legs are moving on a bicycle. Also, his biker legs make me uncomfortable. I know it's part of his caricaturized design, but I can't help but look at how they're shaped and feel like I might get in trouble if I don't censor them. Then you have Champion's kidnappers, the Mafia, who have an elaborate scheme with the cyclist. Thanks to the help of a mechanic who is this mouse man that I honestly love every time he shows up on screen for literally being a human mouse. They have a machine for the cyclist to keep pedaling so that the crime members can gamble on whoever wins the race. Not only do they make their motives clear on the type of bad guys they are and what they want with Champion, but they can also show how threatening they can be where they don't hold back from taking down anyone that's giving them problems. Also, I love how the henchmen play with the animation by looking like they can fuse together and parallelly move the same way. And then there are the triplets themselves, who were former stars in Belleville, but now they perform in smaller shows by playing music in unconventional ways, living in their small apartment, eating nothing but frogs that they catch using bombs. Don't ask why they carry bombs, that's just their thing. But in Sousa's mission to save Champion, they help her after they connected through music. And even after all these years, music is the one thing that keeps their life going and enjoying it along the way. The Triplets of Belleville show how you don't need to make your cast complex or deal with complicated problems in order to have good characters. As long as they have a role in the story and do that role well that can be impactful, then that is enough to be charming and memorable. Animated films that don't depend on dialogue are rare to find nowadays. But when they do show up, they can deliver something amazing. And this movie is a shining example of that. The Triplets of Belleville is a wonderful animated feature that presents how simplicity can offer something fresh and exciting. It may be a basic tale of an old lady trying to save her grandson from the mafia with the aid of elderly entertainers, but it knows how to make that story engaging and heartfelt, accompanied by charming characters, great comedy, and beautifully detailed animation in order to provide an unforgettable experience. This is one of those movies that I consider to be a must-watch for animation fans. If you want to experience some great hand-drawn animation that's different from either mainstream studios or Japan, then I highly recommend to check this one out. It could even give you your fix of 2D animation if you need a break from the typical CG stuff. And if you got a good fix from this review, then how about giving this a like and subscribe to my channel? I could show you even more hidden gems of animation worth discovering. I already respect what Sylvain Chomet can do when I saw some of his later works like The Illusionist, but the Triplets of Belleville gave me even more admiration for his works. And that's why I'm giving this the Animat seal of approval. This is one rendezvous that I will never forget. Hey guys, this is Animat, and as you could tell from the review, I love this movie. I enjoyed my experience watching it, and I even enjoyed my experience making this review, describing why I love this movie. And like I mentioned before, the simplicity of this feature really is the beauty of the Triplets of Belleville, and what makes it stand out from most of the other features out there. And it really does highlight the lost art of minimalism in cinema. Because nowadays, and this is especially the case with mainstream movies, they try to do so many things at once in order to go and appeal to the most people that it can go and gather. But with the Triplets of Belleville, on the other hand, this is one of those movies that doesn't do that. Because it knows that the more you try to do everything, the less likely that everything that you will do will work. And with the Triplets of Belleville, it only sticks to the things that it knows it can do well. And by doing so, it's almost impossible. Like, maybe you'll find like a few things that maybe you won't like, but it's very difficult to find anything that would seem like a bit of a flaw or a little issue that kind of hinders the experience a little bit. And what you get is just so many great things that turns out that pretty much comes together in order to make a really good movie in general. And the funny thing is, with its simplicity, like, you don't have to go and make a long descriptive analysis in order to go and describe why is it you like this movie. You don't have to be like me with this review, spending a lot of time just talking about why is it that you enjoyed this film. even your reasons to like some of the elements or the movie in general, that could be simple as well. One example that I personally have is with the Mouse Man in the movie. You know, I don't have to go like really deep into why is it I like his character or his massive contribution to the feature. No, I really like this guy because he's a mouse man. You know, it's just funny to see this little round guy that looks very much like a mouse who keeps squeaking around. Just see him walking. Like, there's a part of my brain whenever I see him on screen, I'm like, yeah, look at that little guy. You know, it can be simple as that, and it can be effective to how you can enjoy this movie. And I guess overall, if there is one lesson to go and take from the Triplets of Belleville, or at least how it was made and stuff like that, where if you want to have like a lesson from this review, is that in a way, the Triplets of Belleville kind of reflects upon life itself in terms of its minimalism and its simplicity. You don't have to go and do so many things in order to have people to go and like you. Like, you could just stick to the few things that you know that you are capable of and that you know you can do well in order to go and make yourself stand out from everyone else. And that will be a great way to have people to like you. All right, so with that said, now that we are done with the Triplets of Belleville, it is now time that we shall go and move on to a Patreon request. And this time around, we are going to be looking into a request from Red Bandit. So if you would like to be like Red Bandit and you want to get some amazing rewards, and also support my work, and in terms of those rewards, they include, but not limited to, seeing my videos before anyone else, then all you have to do is go to patreon.com/animat. But at the same time, if you would like to suggest an animated film you would like me to review and that I would put onto the animation hat, then all you have to do is write me an email at animatsreviews@gmail.com. All right, so what is it this time that Red Bandit asked me to go and review? What is the next movie that I will be looking upon? Well, interestingly enough, we are going to go into this coincidentally smooth transition where we're going to go from one animated feature starring a set of female triplets to another animated movie starring a set of female triplets. However, those are the only comparisons between the two. There is some aspects that they could be like total opposites, where the Triplets of Belleville, these triplets are massively old. These triplets for the next movie, they are massively young. But don't go and underestimate their age, because this is a superhero movie that we're talking about. So we're going to be looking into something that will be highly action-packed. So stay tuned for that.
C'est fini, mémé.